can do. And when many people think of opera, we don't often think of folks in the brown and black community. It's especially why we're so excited to highlight our next guest. She's a true opera legend, Dr. Sharon J Willis. She's performed in front of Queen Victoria and several U.S. presidents. She's also the first woman to have founded an opera company, and she's composed dozens of operas and plays. Dr. Sharon J Willis, AmeriColor Opera Alliance Executive Director, all the hyphenates joining us now on Start Your Day. I love it. Dr. Willis, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me this morning, both of you.
Your voice right there, so powerful. I can imagine what it's like live in that room. Tell us how you're able to capture some of the younger audiences who may not be into opera or classical music, may not be exposed to that right now.
My approach to classical music is twofold. One thing is to preserve the African-American culture and history within the American experience. And I don't think that opera is solely just European. I just use it as a way of capturing our story. And there's so many classically trained African-American singers that don't get an opportunity to use their voices. And that platform, AmeriColor Opera, is a very valuable platform for them to do.
How did you step into this? Because for some, I imagine it would be exposure. It would be, maybe you have an aunt or someone who introduces you to it, takes you to an opera, or they sing. Who were some of your biggest influences? How did you end up here?
As a child I grew up in Atlanta, even though I was born in Cleveland, Ohio. My life in Vine City began when I was about 11 years old, going to English Avenue. And one of my teachers, Miss Ina Martin, she took us to see Peter and the Wolf down at Symphony Hall. And so I was in the choir. And then when I got to Washington High School, my teacher, Mr. William Revere, a great choral teacher, gave me the life of wanting to and the desire to be a musician. And of course, when I got to Clark College, I met my opera teacher. She was Cecily Evelyn Marie Reeves Beasley, and she was the first woman that I saw with a doctorate degree, and I thought, I'm going to get one of those.
I love it.
And in the late 60s, early 70s, she was my role model, and she had been in New York, and she had graduated from Juilliard. She was an exceptional mezzo-soprano, and I became one of her best vocal students. And she introduced me to singing the opera and Porgy and Bess and learning different roles. And although I was a pianist and then I became a soprano, it was difficult entering opera because every story I heard was very discouraging. The only success story I knew of was Leontine Price and Marian Anderson. But it made me, in my research, when I began my studies with pursuing a master's degree, my emphasis was, who else is out there singing and doing classical music? And I found the story of Ciceretta Joyner Jones, who was the first, what I would call African-American diva, who had almost a 30-year career singing classical music. No, she didn't get to the Met, even though it was purported that she was offered a contract. But when a white patron heard about it, they said, we will not support this company if you let any black singer sing a role, even though the role was Aida, about a black princess. She couldn't play that role. That would wait until Leontine Price would play that role. And Marian Anderson, of course, in 1955. But Ciceretta, she sang before 4 presidents of this country. She sang before Queen Victoria. Heads of states everywhere, but could not get that respect in this country, having to sleep in train cars because hotels were off limits to her. And the only thing she could do were they put these vaudeville shows together. And at the end of the show, it was the operatic kaleidoscope, which she starred in, and she dressed up in these extravagant costumes. And then she would play these parts that she couldn't play anywhere else. So my hat was off to her, and I was hooked from that point to find and to continue to discover who these artists that we stand on their shoulders, who were they? And that's part of my drive.
I think what you're doing is so powerful. And what I love is that you have tied not just the music, but to the stories that are often not told. The stories that we don't know about, that need exposure, and done it in such a creative way. Tell us what's next for your opera company.
I am preparing to do, COVID has really struck us dumb. I mean, our voices have been silent for the most part, except for video platforms. But next year, we're going to perform again, opening with African American voices, which is not an opera. My opera company just doesn't do operas. We do tributes to civil rights leaders such as C.T. Vivian. We have performed at 2 of his birthdays. We have done memorials for musicians in Atlanta who have passed. We do all types of special presentations that most opera companies won't do. They don't do that, but we do that. And so we actually are really tied into the community. And so next year, not only will we do that, but we have plans of doing Pink Lady. That's the opera about breast cancer, trying to encourage, especially women in the African American community, to go forth and take care of themselves. And in that opera, we always have a platform or a panel of medical professionals who actually come on board to give a discussion to encourage women to go forth and try to take care of themselves. And so that's part of that. It's not just entertainment for entertainment or art's sake. I have a mission beyond just that singing. That's part of the platform and using these classical singers. And I should also say, it's not just the classical singers. I incorporate jazz singers, gospel singers. It doesn't matter what it is. The operas that I write have a lot of dialogue and script, so it reminds you of a musical. And there are times where if I need the blues singer to make a point, then the blues singer is on the stage. If the classical singer, the blues singer, the jazz singer are comfortable on my platform.